What does horror teach us about power, politics, and perception? And how can it reshape how we engage with the world? Welcome back to The Final Cut, your daily pulse in horror. I'm your host, Travis, and today marks the first day of October, so you already know what time it is. Spooky season is officially in session, but we're kicking things off with something deeper than jack-o'-lanterns and slashers. Today's stories explore how horror is influencing universities, collectors, feminists, and filmmakers across the globe. From a groundbreaking new academic center to a psychedelic cult classic and a bold feminist manifesto disguised as a scream, today's episode is all about horror as a force of change. Let's dive in. First up, in a huge win for the genre, the University of Pittsburgh has officially launched the world's first center dedicated to the study of horror. This isn't some pop culture elective tucked away in a syllabus. It's a full-on academic hub housing the legendary George Romero archives, supported by global partnerships, and led by scholar Adam Lowenstein, who's been teaching horror since 1999. The new Horror Study Center combines sociology, literature, film, anthropology, and psychology, acknowledging horror as both an art form and a lens through which we process real-world atrocities. Lowenstein even argues that horror can say more about war, trauma, and injustice than traditional dramas ever could. Upcoming events include academic lectures, international exhibits, and of course, screenings at Monrealville's Mall, home of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead. Horror fans, welcome to your new university. My question for you guys, though, is would you take a full horror course if it meant diving into the genre's cultural, political, and psychological depths? Let us know your answers in the comments ahead. Next up, before there was ever The Void or Mandy, there was The Mask, a 1961 Canadian 3D horror film that came with cardboard mystic masks audiences had to wear when the screen told them to put on the mask. Originally dismissed as a gimmick, The Mask has since evolved into a cult classic, beloved for its surreal, nightmarish visuals and participation-driven experience. A TIFF restoration in 2015 gave it new life, and collectors are now paying serious money for original props, like one ritual mask that just sold for $27,500. It's a reminder that horror is just as much about experimentation and audience immersion as it is about scares. And sometimes the weirdest ideas are the ones that endure. My question for you guys is, would you watch more horror if it involved interactive elements like audience mask or ritual participation? Let us know your answers in the comments ahead. And finally, can horror scare us into protecting women's rights? Columbia professor Eleanor Johnson says yes. Her new book, Scream With Me, Horror Films and the Rise of American Feminism, 1968 through 1980, argues that horror's most iconic films were also unintentional feminist manifestos. From Rosemary's Baby to Alien and The Shining, Johnson shows how themes of bodily autonomy, reproductive control, and domestic oppression dominate the genre, even when made by men. Horror, she argues, teaches us through fear. It highlights what we don't understand, confronts uncomfortable truths, and leaves viewers changed, especially when they recognize real-world violence embedded in the subtext. She doesn't shy away from the contradictions either, like how The Shining's power came at the expense of Shelley Duvall's health, or how Polanski's Rosemary's Baby, a feminist horror landmark, was directed by a predator. Johnson's thesis is clear. Horror can be a cultural catalyst, but only if we're brave enough to feel what it's showing us. My question for you guys is, do you think horror can inspire real political change? Or is it simply a reflection of the times we live in? Let me know your answers in the comments ahead. Today's take. October always brings out the pumpkin spice and the plastic skeletons, but this season, let's think deeper. Horror isn't just entertainment, it's education, rebellion, memory, and mirror. From the halls of academia to trippy theaters and feminist essays, horror is asking us to feel more, fear more, and learn more. Let it do its work. We're better for it. Head over to Spotify and vote in today's poll. Which story hits you hardest? Pitt's Horror Study Center, the mass cult revival, or horror and women's rights? And hey, if you got a tip or breaking horror news story, DM us at HMU NCUT and you might hear your scoop featured on an upcoming episode. That's it for today's episode of The Final Cut, your daily pulse in horror. I'm your host, Travis, and remember, every scream has a story, every mask hides a lesson, and every October is a chance to learn something terrifying. We'll see you guys tomorrow with more. Until then, you know the drill. Keep the lights on.